music. Can you all hear it? Oops, hold on. I'm going to share. Hold on. Here we go. Unscripted conversations with there it
Savvy
is.
Creatives, producer and host.
I'm going to start it again. I messed up. Here we go. Forgive me. Here we go. Now you can hear it. Come on, dance with me, Christopher.
Welcome to Read My Lips Radio, a lively hour of unscripted conversations with savvy creatives. Producer and host, akaRadioRed, asks novelists, artists, photographers, designers, comedians, actors, musicians, composers, screenwriters, directors, and technology innovators about their creative passion, inspirational muses, and how they create. Ooh, how those lips can talk. Now, here's akaRadioRed.
Thank you to that wonderful voice. Radio Red in the house. Let me see if that music's going to run out anytime soon. We're just going to let it run out. Welcome. Let's just lower the volume here. There we go. I'm the quasi-engineer joining with Jordyn from Voice America. I'm Radio Red in the house here. It's Monday. Where in the world else would I be? I'm talking to creatives today. I have three wonderful creative people, creative minds, creative passions with me, and we're going to share what creativity means to us in our lives, in the world, etc., etc. So I'm going to open by, I didn't rehearse this with my guest. The sun just came out. It's been gloomy and rainy here in East Tennessee, and the sun is just blazing in through my, lucky I closed the blinds. Here we go. I'm going to ask all of you to make a shape of the letter L with your fingers, please. Linda Kay and Christopher and Jonni, there we go. And on the count of three, you're going to join me in saying hello, L, L, L. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Hello, L, L, L. Okay, Jordyn, my engineer, why don't you put them down as tied for first place in the new year?
We were trying hard for first, though.
I know, Linda Kay. You're almost there. We'll see how it goes during the year, and I'll get back to you on that. LLL is lovely, lanky Laura Legs, our most loyal listener. She, at 6:01 p.m. Eastern Time, will email me and tell me how much she enjoyed the show, and she'll give me a little book report on what you said, Jonni Jordyn, and what you said, Christopher Lee Maher. I hope I said that right. And what you said, Linda K. Gifford. Laura has been listening for years and years and years, and she loves to do a little summary. She says, hello, beautiful, gorgeous lady of red. I love the show today. And then she'll have a little section in her email for each of you. Isn't that sweet, Jonni? It's really, really nice. So I'll get that compliment, and I will pass it along to all of you. I met Laura at a dance class many years ago. I was a dance teacher, but I was taking some different lessons, and we stayed friends all these years. She wasn't teaching. She was in the class as well. So here we are. It is, my goodness, January 27th. The 27th day, see, the math is real easy when you're in January. 27th day of the Gregorian calendar in 2025. We have 338 days left. Don't worry about New Year's Eve yet. It's the fourth Monday, and I'm the only one who really cares. So I have prepared a little bit of a poem, shall we say a rhyming introduction. That way I don't get in trouble with anybody. And I have a section for each of you. And the order today will be Christopher and Jonni and Linda Kay. Okay, so when I call your name, when I say your name, just wave or smile or do something. Okay, so here we go. And everybody, first of all, wave hello to, what do we got? We're streaming on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Say hello to everybody. There we go. Okay, now, welcome to Read My Lips, where akaRadioRed, that's me, shines bright, bringing cool conversations with creatives for your delight. In her Scarlett Mike's live streaming glow, she opens the door for creative sparks to ignite and inspiration to soar. That's door and soar. Today, the flowing of creativity will brighten up your day with three vibrant creatives whose imaginations are at play. Passion and purpose help their brilliance unfold. They've discovered creativity's magic that makes life bold. Here we go. Christopher Lee Maher, at 22, here he is, a Navy SEAL, strong and lean. With joint pain mounting, his struggles were unseen. 7 years of healing, he worked day and night, learning East and West practices to make things right. True body intelligence, his gift to the world to heal, a system of integration where all wounds can seal. Christopher, I hope you enjoyed that.
Right on. I love that. It's amazing.
Good. Okay. See, that's why I asked for the bios. Jonni Jordyn is with us. Oakland born, her journey took flight from Latin jazz keys to stories that ignite. A neurodivergent mind, a spark and a glow. Jonni crafts fantasy, sci-fi, and tales that flow. Love found her anew, a proposal in view. Jonni's pen is her magic, her dreams coming true. Jonni, I hope you.
That's beautiful.
Oh, good. Don't cry. Don't cry. I'm the only one allowed to cry. Linda K. Gifford is here. Singer, flautist, mom of three. Her life's trials shaped her advocacy. From trauma to triumph, Linda K's message is clear. Through spades, SPADES, all in caps, she teaches how to conquer fear. Founder of Sweet Survivor, with strength she prevails, championing injustice. I'm sorry, championing justice through her heartfelt tales. That was a tongue twister. Linda Kay, I hope you enjoyed that. And now, my closing. Join me, Radio Red, as we gather to see the flowing of creativity that shines and makes us free. So gather round, lend us your eye and your ear as we dive into creativity with our vision clear. At my round table set today, we hope to inspire you to live large, love life, and play. Okay. What'd you think? Do I get a thumbs up?
2 thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. I may be the only host who does full rhyming bios and intros on all of my shows. I do that on my Technology Revolution show when I have a different name for that show. My name is different, and my guests are just, "What? You did that for me?" They're amazed. So yes, so I'm creating a new persona, a new branding for myself since last year. I appreciate that. So let's go around the table just briefly. Did I leave anything out in the dash of your life, Christopher? In
No.
3 minutes are left. Come on, fill us in. Give us a little more detail about what I mentioned. Please,
Yeah, a
go
little
ahead.
more detail. I'm a former U.S. Navy SEAL, and I was in pain, right? And pain will really grab your attention. And when you have unrelenting pain, you're forced to either continue to live in it or change it. And most people, from my experience, would really prefer to be out of pain.
Oh yeah.
And so pain was really the driver for me developing a system called True Body Intelligence. And it started out with just a little bit of pain in the bottom of my foot called plantar fasciitis.
Mm-hmm.
And then that came up and created what's called runner's knee. And then from runner's knee, I had iliotibial band friction syndrome. From iliotibial band friction syndrome, I ended up with compartment syndrome in my left calf. And that went all the way up my head to my neck, and then all the way down my back to the center of my hip. And when it got to the center of my hip, it was impossible for me to get away from it. And so I did something what I would consider very brave. I reached out and asked for help. And you can imagine, as a US Navy SEAL, we're trained and indoctrinated into an idea that pain doesn't really matter as long as your focus and your mission are important to you. You can push through anything. And then my body pushed back and said, actually, Christopher, that's a false limiting belief. And I'm going to show you, you need to change in order to be able to grow. And so I searched everywhere that I could all over the planet, and I found a guy who started to teach me a bit about traditional Chinese medicine. And before him, I spent about 3.5 solid years of time, energy, and resources devoted every day to getting well. And if I needed to go a mile, they took me an inch. And so I developed True Body Intelligence as a way of gamifying the pain industry so that you could, if you wanted to, have a body that was comfortable, have a mind that was quiet, have emotions that were grounded, and have energy that was abundant. If you were willing to put in the time, the energy, and effort, you could do so really quickly.
Very, very interesting. And how do you share this with people today? How do you promote? Is there a website or do you
Yeah. I mean, I promote
workshops?
True
What do you
Body
do?
Intelligence. Well, I teach people how to
Mm-hmm.
become practitioners of True Body Intelligence. And then I wrote a book called Free for Life, a U.S. Navy SEAL's Path to Inner Freedom and Outer Peace. And then I podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always giving downloads on Instagram and all the other media platforms. I created my own podcast called the True Body Intelligence Podcast so I can get quality information to
Mm-hmm.
people where they can take actionable steps to begin to feel comfortable in their body again.
Thank you for that. I just wanted people to know. I have had pain off and on for about a year, and it stopped about 5 days ago. But I'm a believer in mind body, and I never was. I didn't understand it. And now I understand when, in what I was experiencing, I'm not going to go into detail, but when your mind tells your body you're safe, it turns off the triggers that generate the pain.
Yes.
Sometimes. So I'm learning that as well. I've had a week of no pain after a year of pain. And because I got a very good diagnosis from a test I had last week. And it just amazes me, Christopher, how the mind is running the show, basically. It really, really is. So thank you for sharing your journey. I know that's a word that's used too often, but I appreciate that very much. And that's part of your creativity was you said a Navy SEAL asking for help, not being able to stand the pain. Oh my goodness, is he really? And that was where you had to create another path, another way to climb out of that. So thank you very much. Let's move around the table. Jonni Jordyn is with us, introduced to me by Mickey Mickelson, who sends me a lot of guests during the year. By the way, I met Linda Kay and Christopher at the National Publicity Summit, and Jonni came to me through Mickey. So Jonni, I'm putting you on speaker view, and we would love to get to know you. So please fill in the blanks I didn't cover in your bio. Go ahead, Jonni.
Well, you got all the spots. I was a professional musician. I played Latin music, Latin jazz, and I played with. Well, I never played with Carlos Santana, but I played with his brother, and I played with several musicians that were with him at Woodstock. So when I started writing in college, but when I got out of college, I found myself suddenly available to these Latin musician superstars. And so my career took a turn then, and I played music for about 20 years. And when I left California, I found I didn't want to start over again. I actually had started over again. I had arranged an entire 3 sets of music with a threesome, and things were going good until the singer said they wanted to go back to acting. And so at that point I said, well, I'm going to go back to writing. So I shifted gears and began writing. And another thing that you touched upon was a looming engagement. It's real.
Lovely, lovely. Are you happy?
I am so happy. We have not set a date. We've only set a promise that we're going to set a date. We're kind of going to watch how this year goes, because right now it's kind of scary how this 2025 is going to end up. But I'm thinking that we're probably going to pick a time in the fall or the winter.
Very, very smart. Do you have a dream place you want to be married? Have your ceremony at, Jonni?
We have talked about so many. One of them, there is a railroad in Colorado that it's a steam engine, and you can actually have services on the train. And I thought that would be really good, but we couldn't invite all of our people. And we've each been married before, and so we kind of wanted to have the dream wedding that neither of us had the first time. And so we're thinking outdoors on a hill with grass and everybody, sitting on folding chairs, squeaking while we tell our vows.
That's lovely. And by the way, you could do a ceremony also on the train and live stream it and have people go on Zoom and watch it. You could have a camera there. Just a thought. You could do both, but that sounds just lovely. It's important to have a place that means something to you. So
yeah,
I like that. Thank you very much. And by the way, I'm a drummer. Haven't drummed a little while, but I was playing with a 12-piece Motown band in Durham, North Carolina, in our community. I hated the name. It was called a Still Kickin' Band. It was like, well, they're still alive and kicking. Duh, we weren't that old. But I had my own Latin band briefly, Jonni, called the Blueberry Jam. And the reason was I lived on a street called Bloomsbury Manor. So I called the Latin band Blueberry Jam. And it lasted a little while, and we did some cool stuff in Santana. And it was just a local thing. But I love the Latin beats, and I admire. I'd love for you to play something, but I know we didn't talk about that. She'll come back and play on another show. That's fine. Jonni, thank you. So lovely to meet you, and congratulations again on your, I think nuptials is what they call it, or is that the actual wedding? I'm not sure. Do you know?
I think that's the actual wedding.
Oh, and by the way, you're in IT. You didn't mention your IT career. Just give us a couple of sentences here. Come on.
Okay.
I'm a programmer too. I want to know. Go ahead.
Yeah, IT. That's my day job. I started in the late 70s. I quickly I quickly rose in 7 months to be the manager of a small shop, and but I didn't want to go into management, so I continued on a technical career path, and I contracted for about 25 years, and I played music in the background. And yeah, IT has paved my way, paid my bills, but I have rebuilt myself, and I've started a new publishing company, and I'm putting all my books out every 6 weeks, and I'm hoping to finally be able to put the IT away. I've got an old system I'm taking care of, and it's going to be retired at the end of this year. So all we need to do is just keep the lights on until third quarter, fourth quarter, and then we just, I can fade away.
You'll do it. When you were talking about playing music and being in IT and programming and all that, I'm thinking of she kept the mainframes humming, but that's a bad joke. Question. You didn't tell us. Give us the titles of your latest books, one or two of them, and what genre do you write in?
Well, I have a series, Magic Realism. It's called The Lost Art of Magic, and I've just released the 4th book of the series. I've also got 2 rom-coms that have just come out, and I've just released a sci-fi. Well, actually, it's a sneaky sci-fi because it's really espionage and intrigue and chases and people being spies and people being kidnapped, until you get to the ending and you find out, oh, it was a sci-fi all along.
Okay, so, don't tell us any more than that. No, no sneak peeks there. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'd love to get one of your books on an ebook if you want to send it to me. If you didn't already, I'd love to read one of them. Let's go around the table to Linda K. Gifford, whom I met at the summit. Linda K., there you are. I'm putting you on speaker.
Thank you.
Fill in the blanks.
Like,
You're welcome.
I'm like Sheldon Cooper. I was going to burst until we talked about your books. I can't wait I've read the synopsis of all of your books on Kindle, and I'm so looking forward to reading the whole series. I have 3 adult sons, young adult sons now. I read all of their books and their book series and their fantasy series, and there's so much to unpack regarding how you realized your origin story, Jonni, of unpacking the patriarchal thing into the sci-fi, not getting political, just getting real with explaining magic, how it used to be real and now it's not, but the losing the realness, did it really go away? Fascinating stuff. And Christopher, I really, really would love to talk to you about the manifestation part. I got a lot out of your book. I got a lot out of, I've done a lot of inner healing myself, and I did a lot of physical training and was very, not SEAL buff, but buff at people stopping me on the street asking me how I trained buff when I was younger. Much younger.
Linda K., that's very, very kind of you to, she told me she was going to read about you. We want to know
stuff.
about you.
I'm glad to be here with you.
We want to know about you now. This is your turn.
Yeah.
Your Bible. Go ahead.
I think I used up all my time. Thanks. Bye.
No, you didn't. Go ahead. I'm giving you your time. Please. We want to know about you.
Well, I was literally born to a preacher. I was the 4th child and 5.5, 8, and 9 years behind my siblings. So I was kind of a surprise. And my dad also was in the process of giving up the ministry. So after he baptized me, he left the ministry and went into counseling and got masters in theology and psychology and ancient history. So never a dull conversation in my home. No one thought I was autistic or anything like that we didn't talk about those things. I just didn't speak until I was almost 4, when I started talking in full sentences and reading my storybooks to them, turning the pages at the right times, and everyone's like, oh. So I skipped and I went to a preschool at Mizzou. I was in like the Genius program, and I've been tested my whole life because Dad liked to do that, not in an abusive way, I'm part of a program way. Now I realize I'm a high functioning autistic, and that led into some of my troubles. But we're talking about creativity today. We're not talking about troubles.
Okay.
So tying in my creativity, I mean, they do go hand in hand, because a survival technique when you're being sexually groomed and later assaulted is going into yourself, going into your mind. And I did that thing. We lived out in the woods, and I would go out to a glade, and I would just sit and I would write and I would play my flute to lizards, literally to lizards. I like the flute a lot. I've discovered everywhere in the world they gather and listen if you play. Um, and I started writing music that was terrible in the beginning, poetry and things like that, all the way back in grade school. I've just always written, always started writing songs, always been in a band, put myself through college in a band. Um, but yeah, there was a time in there that I was leading a dual life, that I was being sexually assaulted and following years of grooming. I talk about that in my book, but really more what I deal with is this, which is my program of helping people to overcome CPTSD. And SPADE's program is just a 6-step, SPADES, healing shame, separating past from the present, asking for what you want, and not waiting to feel okay to be okay, going out and doing things in the world, educating and advocating, and finding spirituality within yourself, whatever, separate from religion, separate from all of that. So what I do now, that's I've come through a lot. Had my 3 children, married and divorced 3 times. It would take too long to explain all of that. Suffice it to say that I have 3 successful young adult men who would never harm a woman. One's becoming a police officer and actually is a Carnegie Medal of Honor nominee for driving his Mountaineer between a semi truck and a sports car, saving a man and his dog's life with a split-second decision that it'd be better for him to get hit than the man in the car that was having a heart attack and going into the path of the semi. And so my life has just turned out wonderfully. I opened a store following my mom and my brother's deaths 6 months apart in 16 and 17. And I'm like, okay, I've got my store selling women's things. I made a deal with God on the back porch crying, I need a path. If you give me a path, I'll run with it. I'll do it right. I'll be honest and true. And I did that. And he did that. It did that. The universe did that. Gave me a path. And I was offered a store. I was offered a business. You start a business by a friend who is someone that I ran 2 car washes, detail shops. And he's like, you should have your own business. And I called him up. My brother just died. I went to my job at the car wash and I quit that day. I didn't know I was going to until I walked in the door. I just looked around and I went, no. And I walked back out and I called him up. I'm like, I hope you still want to do that business thing. I got $7,000. And we did. We opened a store at the mall and we sold women's artwork and women's fair trade. And I've been doing that ever since.
Lovely.
We started Sleep Survivor and I wrote a book and here we are. So
quite a story, Linda Kay. Thank you.
I'm trying to open women's homes across the country. And also I have the foundation laid for like an Etsy, but charitable. I bought a whole bunch of .coms. And I've done various things with them, but they're all coming together under the umbrella of Earth 2.0. And the Sweet Shopping group already exists. So.
Thank you. You've been busy. Thank you so much. A lot you packed and unpacked in that story. And
that's half of it.
We appreciate you. Well, we don't have time for the other half, but we're going to go on with the show now.
I did.
Thank you very much. I did identify when you said you walked in one day to your job and you said no and you walked out. I did that. I
didn't leave them in a lurch. The man that was replacing me for my brother's funeral.
Yep.
He was there. And I was like, oh, I thought you moved out of town. He's like, oh, that didn't work out. I'm back. I'm like, really? Do you need a job? Yes. Do you want your job back? He said, yes. I'm like, well, I don't have hiring power, but
there you go.
Tell him I don't work here anymore.
There you go. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the quotes. I've asked each of you to please send me a fictional quote from a movie or a TV show or a song lyric, and you're going to relate it to your own creativity. And Christopher, we're going to start with you. And I love this. Just tell you that it's a song by the British rock band Queen, written by the bassist John Deacon. The song was featured on their 8th studio album, The Game, back in 1980. It was a worldwide hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 weeks. Their second and final #1 single in the U.S. I didn't realize that, Christopher. The longest running top 10 song of 1980, 15 weeks in the Billboard Top 10. And the Deacon's bass line was inspired by. Did anybody remember Good Times by the disco group Chic? I remember it. There you go. Chic co-founder Bernard Edwards said that Queen record came about because the Queen bass player spent time hanging out with us, Chic, at our studio. So the line Christopher has selected is "Another one bites the dust." Okay, Christopher, what's this got to do with you? You got to help me out here. Let's take
Yeah.
2 minutes. Go.
Yeah, this is important to me because when I'm working with people and we have a successful pattern interrupt and they have a breakthrough, I always say in my head, another one bites the dust, meaning we've taken some level of shadow, some level of darkness, and we send it back to the light to be transmuted back into happiness or joy or peace or groundedness. And so that's something that always runs in the back of my head when we have a breakthrough.
That is the opposite of what I thought you were going to say. The what bite the dust usually is something's getting killed, something's getting put down, something's getting taken out, and you turned the bad stuff is biting the dust.
Yeah, that's right. The bad stuff is biting the dust.
I like the way you turned that, Christopher. You turned that very, very well. Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. And you knew the Chic story about the bass line, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? See, that's my job, is to find stuff that people don't know. I love researching the quotes. It's one of my passions, is to research the. Let's see another one. To bite the dust, beginning lyric set up a scene similar to a mobster movie with machine guns ready to go. Later refers to a failed relationship. Another one bites the dust. Blah 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 blah. Okay, thank you very much, Christopher. That's lovely. Jonni has picked a line from Marlowe Manners, played by Mae West. The movie was Sextet. I'm getting in shape. I'm getting in persona here, Jonni. 1978 film Sextet, spoken to an armed gangster named Vance Norton, played by George Hamilton. In 1978, I'll read the line a second. Mae West incontrovertibly delivered the joke herself in this movie. She was speaking to him as a armed gangster. The movie is 1 hour and 28 minutes long. Mae West, you may all remember, had this wonderful, sexy voice. Its location, I have the exact location in the movie where the quote is, Jonni. It's 24 minutes remaining, and it's available in video on Hulu. There you go. And the line is that a gun in your pocket, or are you just glad to see me? Jonni, how did I do? Did I pass the Mae West test?
Yes, you did. That was good.
Go ahead. Tell us, how in the world did you pick that? Go ahead.
Well, largely because one of my most recent releases is a book called The Diva of Mud Flats. And it really is just a ridiculously hilarious mix of people from all over the place. I got gangsters, I got cowboys, I got mobsters, and I've got this woman who's a soprano, the best soprano in the known universe, and she gets stranded on this dusty moon. And so that's really where my mind went to pick that, because she's not a nice person. She's very much looks down on everybody, and everybody in the world is there to take care of her and make her feel better. But yeah, that's and when I researched that particular quote, which by the way I put in the beginning of the book, but when I researched that quote, I found out that quote has been used so many times with slight variations, and it was really hard to try to pinpoint where it was used and when it was first used, because it became it is so popular that it is absolutely has no rights restrictions at all. It's completely open to the world.
Very interesting. Another line Mae West is famous for is, "Why don't you come up and see me sometime?" Remember that one?
Yeah.
And the other one is, "Why don't you come up and peel me a grape?" Christopher saying, "What world is this woman talking in? I don't know." And Linda Kay may remember some of this, but Jonni and
Not that one.
Not that one. Okay, well, we could all look up Mae West movies. Jonni, how does this relate to? You said you put it in your book, so let's talk about just for a minute the creativity of putting a quote in the beginning of your book. I know this is something a lot of authors do. What do you look for in that quote? Is it supposed to relate to the topic, or just to be a zinger? What do you look for when you put it in your book?
Okay, so when I do my Now I can't even remember what it's called. That's how old I am. But no, I have a quote that pertains to the book, or in some cases I write a poem that pertains to the book, and I put that in there. But I have quoted Einstein. I wish I could remember all the people. I've quoted quite a few.
That's
But
fine.
no,
That's why I used to ask people on my show, this show, and the technology show for a quote from real people. And after a while, they were all picking the same ones. It was Gandhi, and it was Einstein, and it was JFK, and it was just the same quotes all the time, over and over again. And about 3 years ago, I said, let's change it up and do popular culture quotes. So we went to movies, TV shows, songs, and all fictional. And I still have some people, some guests coming on the show. I ran into one today and then they said, I never use fictional quotes. So I sent them a list. I have a collection of about 100 quotes that guests have sent me over the years. And I've collected, I have one with nonsense lyrics. I have one list for songs. I have one list for movies and TV shows. There's over 100 quotes. So I'll send them that and I'll say, just pick one, please. I don't use, well, I'm just asking. It's part of the segment of the show that, yeah, I know. Won't go there. Anyway, thank you very much, Donnie. That was interesting. I got to do my old Mae West voice. There we go.
got any more?
No. Linda Kay, don't get me started. Linda Kay Gifford has picked a quote from a song by Esther Hoffman, played by Barbara Streisand. Track number 7 on the A Star Is Born soundtrack from the 1976 musical romantic drama film directed by Frank Pearson. And the movie was written by Pearson, John Gregory Dunn, and Joan Didion. Interestingly enough, stars Streisand as an unknown singer and Chris Christopherson, oh, what a movie, as an established rock and roll star who fall in love. Her career ascends while his declines. It grossed $80 million, you ready for this, on a $6 million budget in North America alone. 80 on 6. That's what we call a success. The second highest grossing movie that year in 1976. It won Best Original Song for the love theme Evergreen at the 49th Academy Awards. So here is the line Linda Kay has picked. And Linda Kay, take 2 or 3 minutes and explain what this means to you. It's, they can hold back the tide, but they can never hold the woman in the moon. Linda Kay, charming line. Go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I love Barbara Streisand in general. Her whole juju is good. Her voice, phenomenal. And in that movie, not the first, not the last, but in my opinion, the best. I could probably memorize that every song from that. And there's a whole lot of empowering songs on it. That line is just thinking about how no matter how many figurative levees and dams we're not getting political, but let's say the patriarchy, let's say the powers that be, let's say the kings, not the peasants, put to hold back the tide, the moon forces, the forces that control the tide are always going to win in the end. Give it time. At some point, you're going to stop maintaining that stuff, or somebody's going to say, I'm coming over the top or through the bottom. So I'm saying I want to be the woman in the moon. That's what the song is saying. It's just flipping again, like you're talking about flipping. Flipping the adage to the power is the woman in the moon, and you can do what you want, but we ain't let you get away with this. And in a world where we can trade daughters for livestock legally in some places, I think that it's time that we really embrace our power and find the levees and the dams, go over them or under them or through them.
Thank you. Thank you. Interesting quote. Thank you very much, all of you, for playing along with the quote segment.
Write some of that down.
There you go. There you go. I want to now go to your creativity statements. You all sent me such wonderful insights here. I'm going to read one from each of you, and let's see how much time we have. We might be able to do more. I don't know. So, Christopher, I'm reading statement number 2 because I related to this. Don't worry about it. I'm going to read it for you. Christopher says, I'm the kind of person who loves pressure to build for weeks on end. Then I use that pressure right before a deadline to squeeze creative forces straight to the surface and figure out profound, intense avenues to express my inner fire. Christopher, you could write a whole movie around that sentence, 2 sentences. You could write a whole book around those 2 sentences. They're just absolutely packed. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how pressure works for you? Do you create it? Is it a clock pressure, a schedule, a calendar pressure that's coming from the outside? Do you manufacture it yourself? Because I know how that works. And what about this intense inner fire? Christopher, take about 3 minutes. Go.
Yeah, I think for me, the way that it works is it's about timing, and I can start to feel something building maybe months in advance. And then suddenly my life is turning a completely different direction. I know it's coming. And simultaneously, suddenly there's all this space in my schedule. And I'm always curious, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then suddenly the pressure starts building and I feel it. And it's something I'm thinking about every day, several times a day. And then it goes from every day to like every hour. And then from every hour to every minute. And then suddenly I sit down and this intense level of fire gets activated. And whatever I needed to produce gets produced flawlessly.
Flawlessly. That's interesting. Do you ever try to get something done without that pressure where it doesn't fly off flawlessly?
Yeah, I mean, I have attempted to do that, but none of that, how do I say it? I know they say slow and steady wins the race. That's something they teach you in the SEAL teams.
Okay.
Like slow is fast. But for me, I always need intense pressure to create something that's really intensely powerful. And the other way has never really worked for me.
Interesting. I wonder if that's a type A thing. I'm like that, but I create the pressure and I'll get up in the morning and I'll say, what do I have to do today? What are my deadlines? Can I save something that's exciting to put it closer to the deadline, which could be tonight or tomorrow, and not do it today when I have a lot of time? And I accomplished this morning in 18 minutes what would normally, I think, would take most people about 2 hours. I put together the promo for this show, which you all received, but I created that email with the picture and then the links and everything, and I sent it out in 11 e-blasts to 1,000 people. And then I posted it on Facebook, I think, all in the same in 18 minutes before I had an appointment. And I said to myself, can I squeeze all that in and be happy with the result, with what and I was, Christopher. I created that flashpoint on my own. Is that something you would do for your own
Yes,
creating whatever?
1000%. That's how I
Isn't that
would do things.
interesting?
And the other reason why, like whenever I teach, I'll create a workbook, but the workbook is based on my desire to co-create with the divine. So I don't want to know everything that's going to happen.
Hmm.
I want to leave it like a completely open space so then the moment can be the master and I can respond to whatever the moment is asking for, as
Very,
opposed to dictating what I think the moment needs.
very beautifully put. And by the way, that's a principle of improv. I studied comedy and improv years ago in New York. And the thought was we'd have, let's say, 20 people in the class, and they'd have us circulating in the room, just walking in nonsense directions or in a circle, whatever. And then the teacher would say, pick somebody and say something that happened to you, something you saw today in Manhattan. It was in New York. And they'd say, damn, that parking meter ran out before I could get back out of the store. And then they would say it a couple times, and we'd walk around. And then somebody would get the sense that they needed to do the next statement, but this person wouldn't say, okay, Christopher, you're next, and tap you on the shoulder. It's what did the room need? What did the
That's right.
conversation need? And the next person, they just knew whether he was looking, but not stare at somebody and make them do it. It just, and then you just knew when the room needed you, and that was your turn. It wasn't, call me, call me, call me. It was like, it's very interesting. Very interesting what you
Yeah.
brought up, Christopher. Thank you. I want to move on to Jonny's statements. Jonni, I'm combining 3 of yours. I think they go together nicely and they're brief. So let me read those and then you'll just put them together for me. So you say, I always have, Jonni is a writer, I always have a beginning and ending in my mind. The trick is to find multiple ways to get from point A to point B, presenting the reader with options to figure out, but finding a way to surprise him at the end. Then she says, Never pull a surprise ending out of thin air. Always give the reader a plausible opportunity to know where it came from and even to have guessed it ahead of time. And then the third one you said is I like to alter the pace of the book. Some very fast-paced, intense scenes, some slower sections to give them time to pause and catch their breath. Jonni, I think these are all the same thing. It's how you pace your novels and how you come up with where to start and where to end and the surprises. So would you mind? Well, of course you wouldn't. You're here. Take 3 minutes and unpack this for us a little bit, please. It was like a primer or a primer on writing a good book. Go ahead, Jonni.
Well, yeah, absolutely. When I have an idea for a book, there's only a few places I can start. Either I'm thinking of a specific character who's really interesting, or I have this idea of, well, why don't I explain how this happens in the world? And so I have an ending, and then I have to come up with the beginning. In the middle, the characters might help me write the story, but I always have multiple threads that are twisting around in and out. And yes, I want the readers to think they can guess how it's going to end. Some of them might be right, but never ever pull the wool out from under them and say, oh yeah, by the way, I didn't tell you about all these other things that happened off the page, but that's why you don't have no idea that this new character came along and they did it. And you see that today in some B movies, and where obviously the writer or the director or both said, hey, let's really pull a surprise. And nobody's going to guess this. Well, of course, no one's going to guess the ending. You didn't give them the proper clues. Mm-hmm. I think people should have the right to think of what's going to happen and say, oh, I know where this is going. And sometimes they're not right.
I watch a lot of procedurals. 1 second, Linda Kay, I'll get you in a second. I watch a lot of procedurals, mostly French language shows, where they have very quirky women leads, female leads who've been a police detective and went to have 3 children and came back 10 years later, and everybody laughs at her, but she knows how to talk to a perp, and she knows how to basically detect a crime scene more than anybody on the police force. And typically the shows are 45 minutes or an hour and a half long. And I learned long ago that if they introduce a person who's a suspect too soon in the show, there's no way that they are the one, because they've got an hour and a half to go, and it's too soon. It might be the one who is just the nicest person along, who just had 3 or 4 lines, and then 8 minutes before the end, why did we talk to him? And then you knew all along that he was the only one left who had been a character. So yeah. I appreciate that. So you're basically saying respect your reader, aren't you, Jonni? Respect your reader.
That's a real good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I got from it. Linda Kay, you want to say something to Jonni? Go ahead.
I was just saying, it seems like there's a whole lot of flipping the narrative going on here. And I would call it plausible credibility. We always talk about plausible deniability, having plausible deniability, but you're saying as writers, the reader or listener or whatever should approach the ending, or at least look back at it and go, oh, that's got plausible credibility.
There you go. Yeah. I watched a show recently. I can't even remember. I watch a lot of them. And instead of reading novels, I watched the novels that were turned into TV shows, many of them. And there were clues to what had happened. And the show never went back and discussed or explored those clues. And that stayed with me and bothered me. It bothered the heck out of me. Man is found almost shot to death in this palatial home. Kids running around. Babysitter is late. Comes in, finds the man, calls the police. Wife is missing. Did somebody kidnap her? They find her 3 days later lying down on a pew in a church somewhere in another city in France. And she's barefoot on one foot and her other ankle is covered with blood. We saw her walking around and then lying down, and the priest discovers her. They never said, was she kidnapped? Did she have amnesia? Was she the shooter? They never got to it. They just reconciled the marriage. And her father said, I never wanted you to marry that bum anyway, but they reconciled, and the husband decided to stop drinking, and the wife decided to stop fooling around. But they never said, why was she walking in this quaint little town hours away with one shoe off and blood on her ankle? Mm-hmm. And they never explained it. And that pissed me off. That really did. I felt like they hadn't finished writing the script. Jonni, any quick comment on that as a writer?
Well, there are cliffhangers, but I would never do that as a cliffhanger to the next book. I mean, no, I want you to think, oh, that character was interesting, and oh, there's another book about that character. Let me go, read that. You don't leave them hanging like that.
Yeah,
That's rude.
it was unfinished business. Thank you, Linda Kay. I'm going to read your statements because I'm looking at the clock. I have two statements for you, Linda Kay, and I think well, actually, it's one you added detail. So here we go. Linda Kay says, "I've almost never written a song. The operative word is written, though I have a couple hundred songs, and I'm about to release 58 more. You're a beast, Linda Kay. I just hear them in my mind. Music and words feel like they arise from absolutely anything and everything." And she says, "I hear the songs in my head pretty much complete. Then I listen to them and give the individual parts to the respective instruments I hear. People ask, what's my writing method? And I say, you have a method? I hear the words and music all together playing in my head and I dissect it. Or, and I have put lyrics to other people's music and vice versa." Linda Kay, I've got 3 minutes for you. So go ahead. Would you unpack this for us, please? Very interesting.
Well, been a songwriter since I evidently came out of the womb, if you ask my father. All the way back to songs as bad as Your Ass is Grass. That was early teenage angst. Yeah, your ass is grass, you're gonna get it. To like jazz decades later, where we're singing, 15 years later, where how big is your tree? How big is your tree? This kind of, so sometimes it's straight jazz, sometimes it's reggae, sometimes I hear music and I like so many different genres that I like. I'm internationally known in the bluegrass world for writing a song that Del McCurry cut, and then Rhonda Vincent asked me to write songs for her. So that's my next project. And I was going through all my songs. I'm like, I've got a solid 58, and I've written a couple more since then that just need to be done. But like you said, written. When you said written, it's like writing would imply I have an idea and I'm going to expound upon that, and I'm like, no, I'm just walking along and I'm like, bop a doop a doop doop doop, and I hear this, and what is that? There's the bass line. It's doom 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 doom, and I've got a bass line, and suddenly, there's some guitars that goes in there. I'm singing whatever comes to the top of my head, cause I don't know. So that's like what it is, and it can be as dumb as like I just wrote one that I can't wait to record. Mama loves to cook. She got buns in the oven, and I'm just making fun of Papa. Papa, he's a running because he saw it coming. Mama loves to cook. They got buns in the oven, and just like it can be that. It can be jazz. I write classical. I don't know. I've got so many songs. And I spent so many years child raising that I cameoed and I sat in with people. And, I've played with Willie Nelson, and I've got an open invitation to sit in with Carl Weathersby anytime, anywhere, and Junior Brown, and big people that I'm always a bridesmaid, never a bride, because I chose to be a mom. And
Lovely.
so did what I could on the side.
What a story you have, Linda Kay. And
I'm coming back. I'm just now coming back out.
You and Jonni have a lot in common with the music, right?
If KT can do it, I can do it. What's 58 songs?
Christopher, you want to sing a little? I can get you in on this group if you want.
Oh, man.
I'll bring my drums. I'll bring my red drum kit.
So many more sophisticated songs. I can't believe that's what I sang you. Oh my gosh.
I'm going to read some events here. I think you'll all appreciate it in music history. We're going to close in about 6 minutes, but and I'll say thank you then. But I'm going to play the outro music. So on this day in 1956, Elvis Presley was 21 years old at the time, but on this day he released Heartbreak Hotel, which became his #1 first hit in the U.S. Interesting. Let's see, on 1962, which was 6 years later, the Twist was #1, and two DJs held a concert at the Cow Palace in where in L.A. or San Francisco. It was a
Cow
Twist.
House, San Francisco.
San Francisco. It was a Twist party hosted by Chubby Checker. Okay, the Twist was #1. They said, let's just throw a party. In the same day, Elvis Presley's Can't Help Falling in Love was certified gold. The same day, Joey D and the Starlighters' Peppermint Twist hit #1 for the first time of 3 weeks. It was a very busy January 27th in 1962. And this day in 71, David Bowie did interviews in the U.S., not performing for the first time, and he created a story because he was wearing a dress. We'll just leave that one alone. In 1972, the New Seekers' I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing was a Coke ad. It became certified gold as a single. On this day in 1984, Michael Jackson filmed an ad for Pepsi, and guess what? There was pyro floating around, and it burned his hair, set his hair on fire. On this day in 91, Whitney Houston, boy, I wish he was still here, lip-synced the national anthem at the Super Bowl. It was later released as a single, and it hit #20. On this day in 2014, fast forward, Billy Joel began his residency at Madison Square Garden, playing once a month as long as it's in demand. I thought that was interesting. On this day in 2015, Taylor Swift's Twitter and Insta accounts were hacked, and bogus tweets were sent to her 51 million followers. She had the fourth largest Twitter account. She went on Tumblr and she said, hackers gonna hack, 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 hack. And she told them, don't worry, there are no nude photos. On this day in 2018, a year after she left the group Fifth Harmony, Camila Cabello's Havana, da, da, I love that song. Great, great Latin dance. Hit #1, honoring her birth city. And on this day in 2024, this past year ago, Max Martin he broke Beatle producers George Martin's record for the most #1 hits as a producer when he produced Yes and by Ariana Grande, who is now starring in Wicked, became his 24th #1 production, and his previous one was Hit Me Baby One More Time by Britney Spears all the way back in 99. Today is Alan Cummings' birthday, the Scottish actor. If you haven't seen him, go take a look. He's hosting The Traitors now. He was Eli Gold on The Good Wife for years on CBS. Patton Oswalt, the funny stand-up comedian. He's been in almost everything. He is 56 today, and Rosamund Pike, who was in Gone Girl, is 46 today. Would you believe in music history, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born today, 1756. And Jonni, he died at the age of 35. He was a child prodigy, a musical genius. His classic operas included The Magic Flute and The Marriage of Figaro. He learned to play the piano by watching his sister's piano lessons. He began composing and performing for royalty when he was 5 years old. He has over this is for you, Linda Kay. Mozart had over 600 works to his credit. Interesting? Today is the birthday of somebody named Squeezy on YouTube. Why am I telling you this? Because Squeezy, whose real name is Lucas Hauchard, he's a French YouTuber. He has only 19 million subscribers, Christopher. I think we got to take lessons from this kid. He did a video called 9 Boring Tips While You're on the Computer. 9 trucs chiants contre sur l'ordre. I don't know what that means, and I speak French, but I can't figure that. And one called When I Was Young and Innocent. He has his own clothing line. TikTok, Paola Ravia is 20 today. She's only got 6 million followers on TikTok. And on Instagram, Yasmin Lopez is 26, and she's down to only 1.8 million followers. But she's a model, and she has a skincare brand. Today is Bubble Wrap Appreciation Day. Go figure. Today is National Chocolate Cake Day. In 1764, Dr. James Baker, you've heard of Baker's chocolate, discovered how to create chocolate by grinding up cacao beans. And Randolph Lindt in 1879 developed a process to make chocolate smoother and silkier. It's Punch the Clock Day, Thomas Crapper Day. He did not invent the toilet, he just added to the design. And Farmhouse Breakfast Week. January foods, we're almost done. Apricot, apple, artichoke, asparagus, who cares? Be kind to servers month, get organized month, learn to ski month. We'll leave it at that. So in 2014, Jordyn, I'm almost done. I got 30 seconds. In 2014, I closed the show with top 10 tips for women, and the #1 was 2014. Aspire to be Barbie. The biatch has everything. I'm almost ready, Jordyn. And then our closing today is life is short. Break the rules. Forgive quickly. Kiss slowly. Oh, yeah. Love truly. Laugh uncontrollably. Laugh with me, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Oh, good. Christopher laughed. And never, ever regret anything that made you smile. Work like you don't need the money. Dance like no one's watching. Sing like nobody's listening, but you all can sing. I'm not going to. And love like you've never been hurt. We all have.
Give me a stuffed bear.
Get it over. Get over it. Money talks. Chocolate sings. La. And last but not least, I stole this line from somebody else. Thank you for turning me on. Let me play the outro music and see if we can squeeze this in. Jordyn, no, we have time for the outro. Here we go. Ready?
Oh.
Here we go.
On Read My Lips Radio, producer and host, aka Radio Red, invites you to eavesdrop on her live, unscripted conversations with smart, savvy, creative people as she discovers what makes them tick, where they find their inspiration, when creativity first became their passion, and how their creative process can inspire the rest of us to think out of the box. Enjoy aka Radio Red's always lively, cool conversations with creatives on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Oh, how those lips can talk.
There we go. I'm going to say thank you, Voice America, YouTube. Thank you, Jordyn. And I will see you next week. And I'm going to say goodbye to our streaming service here. And we'll see you next week.